So I got to a point where I was like, I'm healthy. Am I allowed to ask for more? And I really had to like contemplate it of if I want to have an aesthetic change now, not just a health change, because a health change was like not a prideful ego thing, right? It was like, I need to thrive in my body. Nobody's going to be mad at me for wanting to be healthy, but they will be mad at me and judge me if I want to be hot. And if I want my six pack and something happens to me where I get sick or I get injured, did I deserve it? Was I asking for too much? Was it too much to ask for something more than health? Welcome to Queen Bold EQ podcast, where I share with you the mindset, energetics, emotional intelligence, and habits required to transform your health and manifest your dream body. I'm your host, Lauren Saracione, a 20-plus year fitness professional, lifelong entrepreneur, and I have self-healed my chronic pain and my emotional eating. And I am here to share with you the spiritual and the practical so you can transform your health and manifest your dream body. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode of Queen Bold EQ. I'm your host, Lauren Saracione, and this podcast is about you being the queen of your bold emotional intelligence. You're the queen bee. And in this episode, I wanted to share just a little bit about myself to give you context to the science and the spirituality and the professional advice of a fitness person that I will be sharing with you in the upcoming episodes. So this will really give you a chance to relate and really, kind of test out some of my ideas so that when you hear how I've applied science and spirituality and physical 3D habit change, you'll see kind of maybe enhance some of your faith that this will work for you too, if you take a moment to hear how awful my life has been. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. So my name is Lauren. I have been in fitness for 22 years is what the date will be for 2023. And I basically have always hated myself. And that's probably going to sound totally crazy, especially to a lot of people who've known me for a long time, have seen pictures, my, professional photo shoots where I look very happy and I talk about being happy. And I think that all of that was true. I was happy in a lot of ways, but with the spiritual work that I have done recently and the level of gratitude that I have for life itself really tells me that I had deep, deep, deep sadness and self-hate. And so I can say that I had a lot of depression and self-hate because now I have this internal joy. And of course, I have human emotions that I don't feel good every single day, or things make me mad, or things make me sad, or I feel disappointed. Those things all still happen. I just don't take it out on my body, and I don't plummet into a dark hole. But for the most part, I really like life. And that has been new for me. So that's why I say I had a lot of self-hate and a lot of depression, even though on the outside I probably look good. And also that I was not lying in the times that I said I felt good. It's just having this deeper understanding of feeling good now, where I'm like, oh, I did a lot of deep work to actually go to bed and wake up happy. Does that make sense? So what I would like to share with you is some of the hard stuff so that you have an idea of how this work that I'm going to be sharing with you of Body Energetix, how it can really help you. So the first thing that really set me on this path of self-discovery was when I was 28 and I was dieting per usual. And I was dieting during the holiday season, like, hello, it was terrible. And I just like had a total breakdown. And the lighter way to talk about it is it was the quarter life crisis / Saturn return. So it was just timely. And what happened was I was crying and I tried to eat my binge food, which was peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And I was crying so badly that I spit the food out. And I was looking over the trash can and I was on the phone. And I was like, oh my God, if I can't eat my way out of this, what am I going to do? So when I couldn't eat while I was sad, I was like, oh, this is like way deeper, right? So ironically, that really bad day and really a lot of tears and the things that I was feeling came up the day before a scheduled therapy appointment that my boyfriend at the time had said, you should probably go to therapy. So it was good timing. So when I get to the therapy appointment, I tell this person all the things that are going wrong in my life, what I don't like about my life, what I'm about to embark on in my life. And this person was like, yeah, I don't really think you should be making any of these decisions. I think you should focus over here, gave me some advice, and she's writing up in the chart. And then I said, my mom had a stalker when I was a kid. Does that make a difference? And she was like, yes. So we talk more and she says, this is PTSD. Because at the time I would get so stressed out if someone just looked at me the wrong way. My stomach was always upset. I'd break out into adrenaline dump sweats, like that, like feels like needles come out from the center of your body. That's the adrenaline dump. So I had all these physical symptoms and it never occurred to me that PTSD, I thought that was just like a war thing. So she suggests to do antidepressants and do talk therapy so that I could talk about the things that happened when I was a kid without my body distracting me. I'm like, cool. So I did 6 months of antidepressants and tried to get off and couldn't. Then I think I was on for a total of 9 months before I could wean myself off. And I wanted to be on them temporarily because I never wanted to be in a position where I lost my pills and I had to go off cold turkey because that's a problem. And I didn't want to have to get more or a cocktail because I had a client who at the time she was in her 70s and she often came in with new prescriptions or a new cocktail of antidepressants. And she would talk about things that happened to her birth trauma. And when I was going through this for myself, I was 28 and I was like, I cannot still be upset about these things when I'm 70. No. So I wanted them temporarily just so I could get through the physical symptoms. And I went to other therapists because this appointment that I had with the therapist was more of like, do you want to go to like a psychiatrist? Do you want to go to like family therapy? Do you want to just go with meds? Like, what kind of therapy do you want? And so since my emotions were so heightened and the things that we talked about, and she said, do talk therapy and do medicine. Okay, cool. So I went to 3 different talk therapists and did not like them. And the third one, I had brought a cognitive behavioral therapy book and she said, you're doing great. I was like, that's it. But I should tell you before we go on that the second therapist I had just stared at me. And when I would ask a question, it was like the reflective therapy where he said, you have all the answers within. And I'm so glad now that he said that. But at the time, I was really pissed. And I said to him, if I had all the answers, I wouldn't be here. But now I know all the answers are within. They're stored in our cells, in our physical body. They're stored in the recesses of our mind, and they're stored in our energetic body. We do have all the answers within. So bless him. So after him, that pissed me off that he said I had all the answers within, that's when I bought the cognitive behavioral therapy book. And I'm like, well, if everybody says that I just have to change my mind, here's a therapy book. So I do the exercises and I tried out another therapist and I brought the book and showed the homework and she said, you're doing a great job. And I was like, that's it? You're not going to like add on to it? And she's like, no, you're doing it. Okay. And I still wasn't feeling like totally better about it. So if you're watching the YouTube or if you're on Spotify, you don't know, I'm trying to fix my earring here. I have this beautiful dragon earring that doesn't quite fit me, but I'm trying to wear it because I love the dragons. Let's see if that'll sit on here. Okay. Okay. So my dragon. I did not feel better right away, go figure. So I ended up going to a group therapy. And the therapist gets up in front of the room, and there was a table in front of the room where you signed in. He leaned against the table, crossed his arms in front of himself. Okay, we lost the earring, everyone. No more earring. He crossed his arms and he said, I'm going to tell you something that Kaiser doesn't want you to know. If you don't change your thoughts, the medicine won't work. And he just went on and explained very briefly that the medicine could make us feel better for a certain amount of time. But if we allowed the same thoughts to start to think again, the chemicals associated with those thoughts would start to secrete and we would feel bad again. And that we would need a stronger prescription, or we would need to couple it with something else because that wasn't working. He said, those are your two options. You either get a stronger prescription or you have to start doing cocktails if you don't change your thoughts. And so I remember walking to the parking lot, and I was like, kind of sad that he didn't, give like a quick fix. And I remember calling my mom and I said, well, I guess I'm doing it right. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. So that was it. And I did a lot of exercises where it was just changing a negative statement into a positive. It was catching myself talking shit to myself when I saw myself in the mirror. And so it took a lot of effort and awareness to stay on top of my thoughts, but it worked. And I gave myself a 6-month time period to be as sad and mournful and self-pity. But after 6 months, it was not going to identify me again, because I had this client who was much, much older and still in these loops from infancy. And I was just like, I can't do that. I cannot be that. So the 6-month time frame gave me the freedom to talk about it as much as I wanted to with my friends and just like feel sorry for myself. And I just knew that 6 months it would be over. So in that 6 months, I had a couple of rules for myself. I had to work as little as possible. I was a workaholic, and we're going to get into how that might be showing up for you and how that deteriorates your body chemically. And I had to eat whatever I wanted to eat, whenever I thought of it. So my good list and bad list was really strict as far as self-punishment for eating off of the bad list, or rewarding myself for eating off of the good list for, a certain amount of meals, whatever. We all do. I don't know if we've all done it, but maybe we've all done it. We eat off the bad list to congratulate ourselves for eating off the good list. And then we feel bad because we ate off the bad list. And then we punish ourselves with the good list. Just so stupid. So that was one of my rules. And at the end of 6 months, I gained 6 pounds. All my clothes still fit me. Oh, and the other thing I did is I committed to strength training. I went to the gym 3 days a week. I went sick. If I got sick, I would go on Dayquil, and I would not recommend that now, but that's how committed I was, where I was like, I don't care. I said 3 days a week of strength training and I'm going. And so I really learned a lot about the mind and about thoughts and beliefs and toughness and follow through and all that kind of stuff. And with the food, the eating whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted it, this is how it showed up in real life. I was going to drive to meet my friends for dinner, and it was about a 25-minute drive. And on the way to dinner, I thought about Taco Bell. So my rule was, if I thought about food, I had to eat it. That's really what I should have said, is I ate whatever, whenever, but there was also a secondary part of it that if I thought of food and it sounded good, I had to eat it. So I had the thought of Taco Bell. I'm like, So I went to Taco Bell and I got myself a meal, and I ate the Taco Bell meal on the way to dinner, and I had a full dinner and dessert. Another time that I remember this showing up was I was watching TV, and it was like 10 o'clock at night, and a Burger King or a Carl's Jr. commercial came on or something, and the fries, I'm like, oh, those look good. I'm like, oh, damn it. I said they look good. So I went in the car in my pajamas and slippers and went and got myself French fries and ate the French fries. And this whole thing was just to train myself that no matter what I ate, it did not dictate my value as a person. That was the goal, was to train myself to eat what I thought made me bad and unworthy and undeserving. Therefore, anything that I wanted in my life, my business, my relationship, was not okay for me to have because I didn't deserve it because I ate this bad food. And therefore I was a bad person. So that was the goal of this time period. And I really wanted to be strong. I really wanted to be disciplined. And I have always had an entrepreneurial spirit. And I knew that if I could repair my self-esteem of how I felt with food, that I could teach other people to do it. And so I had it in my mind the whole time that this was going to be something I was going to teach other women. And so let's see, that was in 2010. And then in 2011, I incorporated Pilates Barbell Club. And I don't think I did much with it. I had a sublease under that name in 2012. I opened my own brick and mortar from 2013 to 2015. And Pilates Barbell Club was about being flexible strength in mind and body. So we did core activation. We did a main strength training lift with a barbell. We did HIIT or bodybuilding exercises. And then we finished with the 7 mat Pilates exercises for the transverse plane, for the twisting and side bending plane of motion. And that business was about, as a woman, that it wasn't what we looked like, that it was what our bodies could do, and that we could be strong mentally and physically. And when that closed in 2015, just killed me. Just killed me. And I have done so much work around that of like, how did I manifest it folding? How did I let it run out of money? What was I doing, thinking, and feeling that made it not work? You know, I really looked at who I was being energetically, mentally, and emotionally, spiritually, in addition to what were the business decisions I could have done better. So when that closed, I was in a personal development company, and we were practicing a meditation for 5 minutes. And the meditation was just sit still for 5 minutes. And if you flinch, if you move a finger, you restart your timer for 5 minutes. And it was about getting present. And so in that 5-minute meditation, what I would do is I would envision my energy, my love energy, going all across the planet. And like, I don't know if you remember Backdraft, like the 90s movie about fire. And like, there would be like fire that was like rolling flames, like really low flames that almost look like a time-lapse picture of a waterfall. Like it's kind of fuzzy. I could see flames like going over swamps and over deserts. And I could just feel that like that was my love energy. And with every time in that meditation for that 5 minutes, I would focus on seeing that energy leaving my body could connect to the whole world. And when I saw it encapsulate the entire planet, then every 3D experience that would make me feel love was on its way to me. And I was going to experience love, my love, from the outside in. So this meditation, I think I did it for like 4 months. And I was on a camping trip with my ex-husband and stepkids, and I had an allergic reaction to zinc. So I was in the camper for a couple of days because my skin just hurt so bad to be in the heat. So I'm in the trailer for a couple of days, pretty much by myself. Everybody else is doing their thing, and do my meditation, do my personal development work. I'm, still depressed that like my business had just closed a couple months prior. And I'm scrolling through Instagram and I see a post that says, the only way to love and heal the earth is if you love and heal yourself. And I was like, whoa. And I was just starting to practice self-love, to actually see things in me that was lovable, because everything up until that point was about what I could earn and what I could do, to then feel something that I thought was love, but not love. I don't know if you can relate to that. So I got this idea, and it's like the download. It was like I saw journals and tarot cards and like, all these things of like a full business about love as a verb, about love. And so I had this idea to interview people around the world about the moment, like that was my moment, the moment you realize loving yourself was essential to life and how you are the change you wish to see in the world. So I wanted to talk to entrepreneurs about their moment that they realized they had to love themselves and how that applies to the business that they're in, teaching other people on that same journey. So we did that for a long time. The podcast was publishing from 2016 to 2021. And there was so much spiritual stuff that I was exposed to that I did not even, I didn't know it existed. And I would have moments where I would do an interview and then I'd be like super tired for hours later. And somebody who was into metaphysics would be like, well, you are talking about trauma. And so you're probably absorbing people's stories and their stories when they're talking about their stuff of why they didn't love themselves could be triggering your unconscious stories. So you're just moving a lot of stuff. You really need to practice self-care. And the funny thing about that time in my life is that I feel like that was when I was the most self-hateful and projected the most and was the most angry inside of me and in my personal relationships. Yet on the internet, love is a verb. So I did not feel good about being such a contrast of what my professional life was and what my real life was. And it was really hard because I knew I had it in me to be like a good, loving person. And I was purpose driven. And I knew the things that I had in my mind to help people were good, were, a nice person, like service to others instead of service to self. But the feelings that I had of like rage and sadness and anger and disappointment in me all the time, it was really hard because it was like there was like two versions of me inside and then totally two versions on the outside. It was really difficult. So when I'm doing this podcast in 2017, I had a disc in my neck slide up and under the one above it, and they both tore. It was so painful. And I thought if I just did the work, I'd heal myself in 4 months. And after 4 months had gone by and I wasn't out of pain, the neurosurgeon was like, okay, like you've suffered long enough. I'm like, 4 months is long enough. Like I thought people deal this for years before they decide to get surgery. He's like, no, get surgery. So I posted on Facebook that I was going to get surgery. And somebody said, read Dr. John Sarno's The Divided Mind. And so the gist of it is that in his research, he's a doctor. He passed away in 2019, I think. And basically, he explains that everything that's going wrong in our body, aside from torn tissue, like a bone break, or a missing gene, all of our problems are psychosomatic. And he goes into work of inner child primitive, which is baby. Baby. This is primal fear. This is fear of not being in the tribe. If we are not part of the tribe on a primal level, it means death. Because if we don't have people around us in the wilderness, we will die by another tribe, by an animal, or by the elements. So when we have primal fear of separation, there is primal instinct that means death. And so when we have that mentally and emotionally, we will do things to perform to make sure we are included in the tribe. So this is where we get type A's, perfectionists, and overachievers. Not high achievers that have a high work capacity and they just do it because they love it and it doesn't exhaust them. They're in an energetic balance. The overachievers that are doing everything for the accolades, for the awards, for the validation, and they actually hate their life and themselves. That was me. So when I'm reading Dr. John Sarno's work and it's pretty heavy, like to try to like think about inner child primitive emotions. You think journaling now is hard. That's pretty extensive. So I did that enough. And then I started getting into Dr. Joe Dispenza. And I don't remember how, I think it was like a YouTube suggestion, but I read Dr. Joe Dispenza's books, listened to them on audio, did the guided meditations, watched lots of lectures. And then I also read Biology of Belief by Dr. Bruce Lipton. And so these three people, Dr. John Sarno of The Divided Mind, his work, he calls the problems that we have in our body tension myofascial syndrome. And so when we have the inner child primitive of these negative emotions, these negative fight, flight, freeze, fawn emotions, we also, our subconscious mind will cut off a little bit of oxygen to various parts of our body to give us physical pain to distract us from the emotional pain. And the easiest way you can think of this is that, like, if you get sick or you get injured right when you set a goal or right when you achieve a goal, and then the sickness or the injury sets you back in your body, that's actually an inner child primitive mental emotional program keeping you who you were before you got that change. Because all the mental, emotional, and physical body is ever trying to do is sabotage, is keep the identity of these initial downloads of 0 to 7 intact. That's all it is. We just make it very, very dramatic. So I got that stuff with Dr. John Sarno. Somehow I get into Dr. Bruce Lipton, where he talks about genetics and epigenetics, and that it's the study above the gene, the cellular environment that the gene is in, that then dictates how the gene is going to express itself. So our gene is a blueprint that can build a house, a body of health and vibrancy, or dis-ease and degeneration. And so Biology of Belief, he explains how these molecules of emotion secreting from our brain dictate how the gene is gonna express itself. And then with Dr. Joe Dispenza, he was like taking some huge ancient spiritual practices of energy and the chakra system and the toroidal field that spins around us and throughout us, and breaking them down into like, hey, this is how the mind body talks to each other. This is how, when we have a mood, if we're not being aware and we're ruminating in a bad mood, that eventually it becomes our personality and our overall state of being. And so he explains this energetic change as, if you can change your personality, you will bring your body into this present moment. Because if we're in a mood because of something that happened to us 10, 20, 30 years ago, our physical body is actually in the past. And if we want to have something in the future, a better life for ourselves or a better body, there's no way we can get to it if the body is physically in the past. And the body stays in the past by our memory, conscious or unconscious. Having it in your head, like, yeah, this person, screwed me over, like my dad, my mom, my this, my that. Like, we could have those memories, but then also the stuff that's just like so far under the surface because we've suppressed it because it's too painful to deal with. So with these three guys, Dr. Joe Dispenza, Dr. Bruce Lipton, Dr. John Sarno, the years since 2017 and my neck injury have really been such deep inner work and a dismantling of who I was, so that I could actually just get out of pain. And one of the things that I struggled with in this journey, I had a lot of struggles in this journey, but one of them that I want to share with you right now is that when I stopped binge eating and got into strength training, I was able to make the shift that my body was not about what I looked like. My worth was not dependent on how I looked. I didn't have to be skinny. I was able to let go of that. And then when I got into strength training, it was about what I could do. what my performance was. I had to keep lifting heavier and heavier weights. I had to, whatever the new trend was for fitness, I had to be able to do that. I had to like have people push a sled. I had to have people do kettlebells. I had to have people, and that meant that I also had to do it too. So I was doing workouts that like my body should not be doing. And I would never do now because I don't even like them, but I was doing them because I thought I had to. And so I go from my worth is not defined by how skinny I am or what I look like. It's going to be defined by what I can do in my performance and strength training. So then when I couldn't do anything, I couldn't even lay on the couch for more than 5 minutes at a time without having to adjust. I couldn't sit. The pain of a neck injury was so bad. I'm telling you, like you can't, just this terrible. Then it was, I can't perform. So I had to create a new meaning for my body. And in this, everything that I'm sharing with you, that my whole life, now the meaning of the body is that it's just this amazing capsule for our soul to have an experience on the 3D plane where the energy is so dense you can touch it. That's what the meaning of the body has come to me as. So it's not what we can do with it, and it's not how we look. It is this communication device that allows us to have the experience of life, and that is a feedback system. So it's like our whole body, the health of it, the movement of it, the expression of it, the body language of it, the expression of the genes is all like the indication of what's going on mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Like you could look at your body and it's like your eyes are kind of like the gas gauge and your hands are like the oil gauge. And, you know, your hips are like, if it's electric car that you're driving, like everything that has to do with our body is telling us what our mental and emotional and spiritual state is. So it's not about our performance, not about what we can do, and it's not about what we can look like. None of that stuff is the purpose of the body. Those are all just things that come along with the body. And so in this time now, I got to a point where I had to change my food again for inflammation. I had to stop working out because I was getting flares more often than not. Like the chronic pain was really starting to rev up. And I had to figure out a new way of being in my body. So I barely exercised. I barely even did body weight exercises. I stopped demonstrating for my clients. I, at one point, was going on 6-mile walks every day just because I would take one dog out for a lap and then another one and then another one, another one. And then eventually I had to change my food to an anti-inflammation diet. And then there got to be a point where it was like, okay, now I'm exercising my body differently. Now I'm eating differently. I would really like to have a 6-pack. I would really like that. Like I've always just wanted to be lean and muscular and vascular. Like I want a vein on my bicep. Like I want the whole thing. And I've always loved this body. I have not loved a feminine body. And feminine, soft curves, voluptuous boobs and a butt. Those are all the things that I have. But I have not liked that and appreciated that about my body. I've always wanted to have more of like a boy figure that's very muscular. So crazy, right? So I got to a point where I was like, I'm healthy. Am I allowed to ask for more? And I really had to like contemplate it of if I want to have an aesthetic change now, not just a health change, because the health change was like not a prideful ego thing, right? It was like, I need to thrive in my body. Nobody's going to be mad at me for wanting to be healthy, but they will be mad at me and judge me if I want to be hot. And if I want my 6-pack and something happens to me where I get sick or I get injured, did I deserve it? Was I asking for too much? Was it too much to ask for something more than health? And so I thought back, oh yeah, I had to create a new meaning for my body when I couldn't perform anymore. And before that, I had to make a new meaning about my body, about what size it was. And so it took a while for me to be okay with, yes, This isn't too much. I'm not going to get punished by some person in the sky that's going to make me get sick or injured because I asked for too much to be hot on top of being healthy. And the more I've gotten into an aesthetic that I really like, which now I'm like, yes, like, give me the boobs, give me the butt, give me the shoulders. Yes, I will take the hourglass figure, fit and muscular. I've kind of changed my perception of what the physical body for me will look like. And so now it's like my sabotage edges are, how will someone not like me? How will someone judge me that what I'm saying on social media and what my message is, how will somebody misconstrue that to say I'm like whitewashing spirituality and I'm colonizing fitness? Like, I'm white, I am petite, I will be muscular, I will be the image of colonized fitness, if you know what that phrase means. So I really had to like work through what I fear people will dislike about me if I become my desired aesthetic. And so these are things that I wanted to share with you. I wasn't necessarily going to talk about my my fears of what other people will think of me with my desired aesthetic. I wasn't planning on going there today, but I wanted to share with you that I've been binge eating and emotional eating, and I learned how to get out of that. Through cognitive behavioral therapy and really, changing my thoughts over and over again, being conscious of that, committing to strength training, just committing to 3 days a week of movement, to make that commitment to myself, to have that discipline for myself, because it carried over into other areas of life that I was able to follow through with things because I had so much empowerment. And there's moments, in strength training, when you're doing anything in fitness, when you're doing the same thing in fitness, and then one day you just do the thing so much better, you lift a heavier weight, or you can squeeze out, 3 more reps, or you can do a Pilates exercise in a more advanced way, or a yoga exercise for longer. You're like, oh my God, I remember the first time I did it, I was terrible. What other things am I going to be brave to try now? Because I used to think this would never happen, and look at me, I'm doing it. Like, those things happen in strength training. And with the ability to change the personality and change the energy, to change your mood and change how you're projecting and change how you're taking things personally, like, that's all completely transformed my body. And the things that I've had to do to change my health, to get my body healthy, were habitual and environmental. I had to change what music I was listening to. I had to change that my bedroom had work stuff in it. Like, I was surrounded by work all the time. There weren't very many moments where I knew who I was without work. And so I had to get to know myself. And you guys, this might sound so silly, but I would sit around in my bedroom and look around and say, well, like, who am I? I'm like, oh, I like to smell nice. Look at all my pretty perfume bottles. Oh, I'm romantic. I have dried flowers. Oh, I have candles. And oh, I have like these antique things. Oh, and I have crystals. And I was like, oh, you're pretty cool. Like, you like earthy things, like you have like pine furniture, and like, then you also have this, like, the podcasting mic was still in there. I'm like, oh, and like, you like to talk to the world, and oh, you're really interesting. And I literally had to have these conversations with me to heal my self-image and change my personality to see who I was without work. And so, the habit change, like, goes, hand in hand, that I had to change what I was eating so I wouldn't have inflammation. And then I eventually had to change the quantities of what I was eating to make the aesthetic transformation. And, the journey to a 6-pack has not arrived. I'm on it, and we're going to be probably seeing it in March or April of 2023. And I'm really excited about that. But dieting for an aesthetic change is not what I thought it would be. It is slower than I thought it would be. And it requires a lot more emotional intelligence, because when we don't have as many outlets to enhance our brain with endorphins from eating food, and we have to process our emotions in the moment, to not eat our sadness or our anger of whatever we experience during the day, you got to do that with the food, or you got to do that to not make the food our therapist. So realistic view of dieting might not happen overnight, probably won't happen overnight. But that's kind of like where I'm at right now, like a little bit about me. If you hadn't had any conversations or been in any programs or containers with me, that's really my journey. And it's really added a lot to my fitness career to really relate to people and like go deep with the reasons why the body isn't changing, or the body has changed and we don't feel any different, or the reasons why we can't stick with anything. Like we can really go deep to see, oh my gosh, like that's the thing. So I really love this work. I love Body Energetix. That's my new business. And we'll be talking more about how I made these changes from the chronic pain and from the emotional eating, and then to actually get healthy, then to actually get into the aesthetic that I want, so that you can start applying some of these spiritual tools and science and personal development stuff, so that you can create the body of your dreams, really, whether it's health or the aesthetic. So before we hop off, just want to remind you to go to bodyenergetics.com so you can join our Facebook group. Head over to my Instagram so that you can reply on stickers when I announce what topics are going to be recorded, because these podcasts are going to be recorded live 3 days a week on my Facebook page. So you can join the recordings live. I'll let you know when they're at on those days. Most likely, unless I am terribly, terribly sick or there is an emergency, we will be podcasting live on Monday mornings at 10:30, 10 or 10:30. I'm not quite sure. I don't remember. Tuesday nights at 6, and then Thursdays at 10 or 10:30. These are Pacific times, US times, Los Angeles time. So it'd be great for you to join the conversations live so that we can get into a dialogue, and then also just participate in Instagram so that you can submit questions about a topic that we're going to get into. And then also our 28-day calibration. So this is 28 days of meditating with me delivered to you via email. It's a self-study course so that you can reconnect with your insides, so that you can recalibrate your energy, so that you can really start to see the health and the aesthetic changes, and then also how you're relating to the world and your business. Okay, everyone. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you found it helpful, please share it on social media and tag me at It's Lauren Saracione and at Queen Bold EQ. You can just search my name, Lauren Saracione, on the IG, and you should find both of those handles, no problem. I'm going to leave you with a few little snippets of the ladies who were in the very first Queen's Gambit with me. The Queen's Gambit is my year-long transformation where I give you all the coaching you need for mindset, emotions, habits, diet, exercise, and self-care.
First of all, thank you for just giving of yourself and allowing us to be in this space today. That's been really amazing to just see like how much you're giving to us. So thank you for that.
Because I'm not gonna go shame myself anymore. I'm not gonna go fucking judge myself. I'm fucking over it. I'm so fucking done with that old game. It's just an old game. I'm not gonna play anymore.
Adding upper body has actually been really good. I enjoy it because I've always been so scared of it.
The energetic stuff like has been really great for me because I think that's like what my like soul was craving. Like I've been wanting to know more, but like where do I start? So this has been super great.
New identity, new person, new body.
And it was like, I could never get past certain plateaus, but this makes so much sense.
Exercises go really well. It's so much fun to have finally a gym.
I remember because it was so significant to me. That was after COVID. It was really difficult for me to go back because I had gained weight. I felt really heavy after having been lighter and through COVID and not working out. That day was really nice because you like encouraged me to like continue. When you told me, you're like, you're strong, sweetie, like you can go heavy, and I was like, really? That like helped me just kind of develop that confidence.
And I'm like, well, I'm gonna take responsibility for the mistake, but I'm not gonna like shaming or blaming or judging. It's not gonna help me take the responsibility. It just makes it like harder. So why the F should I like make it hard for yourself? Come on.